Anxiety feels like a storm no one else can see. It rattles inside the mind, shaking every thought, making even the smallest decision feel heavy. You lie awake at night, replaying conversations, forecasting disasters that never arrive, trapped in a cycle that feeds on itself. But what if I told you that this storm is not who you are? The Stoics believed the mind could be trained to stand calm, even while the world outside collapses. They knew that peace is not found in the absence of chaos, but in mastering the way you respond to it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while battling plague, war, and betrayal. Yet in his journals he wrote about stillness, about finding strength in the quiet center of his own mind. Seneca, facing exile and death, still taught that our fears are often worse than the reality itself. Epictetus, once a slave, discovered unshakable freedom not in chains breaking, but in his thoughts breaking free. These men lived in turmoil far greater than our daily anxieties, yet they left us a blueprint to untangle the knots of worry and discover clarity. Today, their wisdom collides with modern science. Neuroscientists reveal how thoughts wire pathways in the brain. Psychologists show us how reframing perception can turn panic into purpose. Writers like James Clear and Cal Newport teach us how small habits and focused routines carve a space for serenity in a noisy world. When ancient wisdom meets modern practice, we find a map that leads not only to coping with anxiety, but to transcending it. In this journey, you will not hear hollow promises. You will find practices forged in fire, tested by centuries, sharpened by modern life. You will learn to separate yourself from the storm, to anchor into the present, to release the illusion of control, and to train your mind like a warrior preparing for peace. By the end, you will see anxiety not as a curse, but as an invitation to rise stronger, calmer, freer. Before we begin, let me ask you something simple that connects us all. Tell me in the comments, from which country or city are you watching this right now? Because this journey belongs to all of us, and your voice matters here. Stay with me, because the storm is about to meet the sky that cannot be shaken. And in the very first chapter, we will uncover a truth that could change the way you see yourself forever. The storm is not you. Anxiety whispers that it is your identity. It convinces you that you are fragile, broken, or defined by restless thoughts. But Marcus Aurelius gave us a different lens. You have power over your mind, not outside events. The storm may roar within you, but it does not define you. It is weather, passing through the sky of your mind, and you are not the storm. You are the sky. When you begin to see anxiety as weather, you create space between who you are and what you feel. That space is power. Imagine clouds thickening on the horizon. They may darken your day, but the sun remains untouched above them. In the same way, your anxious thoughts may cover your peace for a moment, but your true self is always beyond their reach. Marcus Aurelius himself practiced this distinction in the middle of war. Surrounded by enemies, plagued by sickness across the empire, he returned to his journal each night. He poured his fears onto the page, but reminded himself that the chaos was not him. His words were his shield, separating his identity from the storm raging outside and within. You can do the same. The next time anxiety rises, do not say, "I am anxious." Instead say, "I notice the storm of anxiety." Words reshape perception. This small shift turns a crushing identity into a passing visitor. It is no longer who you are, it is something moving through you. Picture standing in an open field during a summer storm. Thunder rolls, rain lashes your skin, the sky flashes with light. Yet even then, you know the storm will pass. You know the ground beneath your feet remains steady. This is the same with your mind. It can be shaken, but it cannot be erased. The storm has no power to define you unless you let it. Anxiety loses its grip when you see it as temporary. Like Marcus under his tent, you can acknowledge the noise without surrendering to it. Each time you separate yourself from the storm, you grow stronger. Each time you recognize, "This is not me," you reclaim peace. But here lies the deeper challenge. What do you do when the storm refuses to pass, when the clouds seem endless and heavy? This is where the Stoics hand us another tool, one that anchors us to the present moment. Hook ending. The storm may not vanish quickly, but you can plant your feet so firmly in the now that it loses its power. And that's exactly what we uncover in the next chapter. The anchor of now. Anxiety thrives in the shadows of tomorrow. It feeds on imagined futures, on catastrophes that may never happen. Seneca warned us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. When the mind races ahead, painting pictures of loss, failure, or pain, the body reacts as if those events are already here. That is the trap of anxiety. It pulls us out of the present and chains us to illusions of the future. The Stoics teach us to return to the now, to anchor ourselves where life truly happens. Anchoring is more than a mental trick, it is a discipline. It is a way of telling your mind, "I will not be dragged into the storm of what if. I will stand in the clarity of what is." When you practice this, the grip of anxiety loosens. Modern science agrees. Neuroscientists show that when you bring attention back to your senses, the brain's stress circuits calm down. This is why mindfulness and meditation have become powerful tools in the modern world. But the Stoics already practiced their own form of this centuries ago, reminding themselves to see what is in front of them, not what their imagination invents. Try this simple anchor. Pause and name 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can touch. It sounds almost too easy, but in that moment you cut the chain of anxious imagination. You root yourself in the only place you can truly act, here and now. Picture a warrior caught in a violent tempest. The winds scream, the earth shakes, yet he drives his spear deep into the ground, holding steady. That spear is the anchor of the present. It does not stop the storm, but it stops him from being carried away. When you anchor yourself to the moment, you become unmovable no matter how loud the winds of worry blow. James Clear teaches that habits compound like interest. Anchoring to the now is a habit that builds resilience. The more you practice it, the more automatic it becomes. Over time, your brain learns not to wander into the wasteland of what if, but to rest in the safety of what is. This is not about ignoring problems. It is about facing them with clarity instead of distortion. Anchoring makes you stronger, calmer, and more prepared for real challenges instead of drowning in imagined ones. But here's the paradox. Even when anchored in the present, anxiety often disguises itself as something else as control. It whispers that if you could just control every detail, the storm would disappear. The Stoics had a direct answer to this illusion, and it's what we uncover next. The illusion of control. At the heart of anxiety lies a desperate urge to control. Your mind whispers that if you plan enough, anticipate every outcome, manage every detail, you will finally be safe. Yet Epictetus cut through that illusion with one sentence. Some things are up to us, and some are not. Anxiety often grows when we blur that line, when we spend our strength trying to master what was never ours to command. Think about the countless hours spent replaying conversations you cannot undo, worrying about other people's opinions you cannot rewrite, or fearing events that lie far beyond your reach. This obsession with control is like trying to grasp smoke. It only exhausts you while slipping through your fingers. The Stoics knew peace begins when you stop chasing what isn't yours and start governing what is. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices. Seneca lived this lesson in exile. Stripped of his position, far from the Senate, cut off from influence, he discovered freedom in focusing on what no exile could take: his reason, his discipline, his courage. Even when the world silenced his voice, he found control in the way he chose to respond. His life reminds us that freedom is not found in circumstances but in perspective. You can practice this today. Take a blank page and draw a line down the center. On one side, write what is within your control: your effort, your habits, your words. On the other, what is beyond it: the weather, the markets, the opinions of others. The moment you place your fears into the second column, they begin to lose power. You see them for what they are: untouchable and therefore unworthy of your chains. Modern thinkers echo this wisdom. Cal Newport speaks of deep work, a commitment to immerse yourself in what you can truly influence. Instead of scattering energy over distractions and uncontrollable events, you channel it into work that matters. This act of focus is modern Stoicism in practice. It is choosing depth over noise, control over chaos. Imagine holding a rope tied to a wild horse. You pull with all your strength, but the horse thrashes harder, dragging you across the ground. This is what happens when you try to control the uncontrollable. But when you let go, when you focus on your footing instead of the horse's rage, you stand firm. The storm loses its hold not because it calmed, but because you released the rope. True strength is not measured by how tightly you grip, but by how wisely you let go. Each release creates space for calm, for clarity, for peace. The illusion of control shatters and freedom begins. But another battle still remains. What if the enemy is not outside of you, but within? What if your own thoughts betray you? In the next chapter, we turn to the Stoic practice of rewriting the inner script. Rewriting the inner script. Anxiety often speaks in the language of fear. It whispers, "What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if everything falls apart?" These phrases play on repeat until they feel like truth. But Marcus Aurelius left us proof that the mind can be retrained. His meditations were not written for the world, but for himself: daily reminders, corrections, and affirmations. He was rewriting the script of his own thoughts, one line at a time. When you catch yourself spiraling in fear, the Stoics invite you to pause and reframe. Epictetus taught that events themselves are not what disturb us, but the opinions we form about them. Your anxiety does not come from reality, but from the story you are telling about reality. And if a story can be told, it can also be rewritten. The practice of premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst, was not about dwelling on disaster, but stripping it of its power. By rehearsing challenges before they came, the Stoics weakened the shock of fear. If the worst happened, they were prepared. If it did not, they were already stronger. Anxiety loses its bite when you confront it directly instead of letting it haunt you from the shadows. Modern psychology mirrors this wisdom. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches reframing. Identify the distorted thought, challenge it, and replace it with one grounded in truth. A thought like, "I will embarrass myself," becomes, "I might feel nervous, but I can still act with courage." Each reframing is like sharpening a blade, removing rust, restoring clarity, preparing for battle. Try writing one anxious belief on paper. Beneath it, write a Stoic response. For example, "What if I fail?" becomes, "Failure is feedback, not identity." "What if they judge me?" becomes, "Their opinion is not within my control." Over time, this practice transforms your inner dialogue from enemy to ally. Picture a craftsman repairing a cracked vase. With patience, he mends each fracture until the vessel holds firm again. Your mind is no different. Every thought reshaped is a fracture healed. Every affirmation written is strength restored. Slowly, the vase of your inner world becomes whole again. Marcus Aurelius did this every night, reminding himself of the values he wanted to live by. His journals were not philosophy for the elite, but survival tools for his soul. He proved that when you rewrite your thoughts, you reshape your reality. But once the script changes, another challenge arises. Thoughts may bend, but emotions strike harder. How do you train your feelings not to overwhelm you? The Stoics believed emotions could be disciplined like muscles, and that is where we turn next. Training emotional muscles. Fear often arrives faster than reason. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your palms sweat before you've even had time to think. Anxiety is not just thought, it is a physical storm. The Stoics knew that emotions, like muscles, could be trained. Seneca reminded us, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Fear is a reflex, but resilience is a discipline. One of their most powerful methods was voluntary discomfort. They would fast, walk barefoot in winter, or sleep on the ground. These practices were not punishment but preparation. By choosing discomfort, they weakened fear's grip. If you can endure hardship willingly, anxiety loses its power to terrify you with what might come. You've already faced difficulty on your terms. In today's world, this practice looks different but carries the same spirit. Taking a cold shower, fasting for a day, or sitting in silence with no phone are modern forms of Stoic training. These small choices remind your body and mind that you are stronger than you think. They build tolerance, just as lifting weights builds strength. Psychologists now call this exposure therapy, gradually facing what you fear until it no longer controls you. Neuroscience calls it rewiring pathways. James Clear calls it habit stacking. But the Stoics called it courage. The principle is timeless. Discomfort faced today creates peace tomorrow. Picture a soldier in times of peace training with heavy armor. He sweats, stumbles, and struggles while the battlefield is silent. Yet when war comes, he moves with ease because he has carried greater burdens before. Anxiety is the battlefield of the mind, and training through small discomforts makes you prepared for larger storms. This is why discipline is a form of kindness. Each act of deliberate challenge becomes a shield against panic. Each repetition builds endurance. What once triggered fear begins to trigger strength. You stop running from your emotions and begin training them to serve you. Seneca wrote letters about practicing poverty, wearing coarse clothes, eating simple meals, and asking himself, "Is this what I feared?" That question dismantles anxiety at its root. You discover that the monsters in your mind are shadows, not giants. Yet even with strength, the soul longs for more than endurance. It longs for peace, for a fortress within where no storm can reach. And that is where the Stoics lead us next. The fortress of inner peace. The Stoics never promised a life without storms. They promised the strength to stand while the storm rages. Inner peace is not the silence of the world, but the mastery of yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote at dawn before the empire's demands consumed him. In those quiet moments, he built a fortress inside, a stronghold of calm that no army, no crisis, no betrayal could breach. Imagine this fortress. Its walls are not stone, but habits. Its gates are guarded by focus. Its foundation is discipline. Each morning routine you build is another layer of protection. When you wake and choose silence before noise, journaling before distraction, reflection before reaction, you strengthen the walls of your inner citadel. Cal Newport calls this deep work, the practice of choosing focus over chaos. By starting your day without drowning in notifications, you preserve clarity. Anxiety thrives in noise, but peace grows in intentional quiet. Your morning is not just preparation for the day. It is construction time for your fortress. Try this sequence. 3 slow breaths, 1 line of journaling, 1 intentional act of gratitude. These may seem small, but each is a brick in the walls of your fortress. Over weeks and months, the fortress becomes unshakable. The storms will still come, but they will crash against your walls and fall away. Peace, the Stoics taught, is not found by escaping life. It is found by facing it with a steady mind. Seneca insisted that wealth, comfort, and security could all vanish, yet the person anchored in wisdom could remain untroubled. Peace was never outside, it was always within. Modern science reinforces this truth. Studies show that morning silence lowers cortisol, gratitude rewires the brain toward optimism, and journaling clears mental clutter. These are not luxuries. They are survival tools in a world of endless noise. Your fortress is not built once, it is built daily. Every choice you make, silence over chaos, focus over distraction, reflection over reaction, strengthens its walls. And every moment you neglect, it leaves cracks for anxiety to enter. The question is not whether storms will come, but whether your fortress will hold. But even the strongest fortress will be tested. Life will throw its hardest blows, and peace will be shaken. When fear tries to burn through your defenses, you must learn how to turn fire itself into fuel. And that is where we go next. The fire that transforms fear. Anxiety burns hot, like fire spreading across dry fields. Most people try to stamp it out, terrified of its heat. But the Stoics discovered another way. Instead of resisting fear, they transformed it into fuel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The flame you fear can be the very fire that forges your strength. Imagine a blacksmith. The iron cannot be shaped when cold. It must be placed into fire, beaten, stretched, refined. Your anxious energy is the same, it is raw material. Instead of letting it consume you, you can channel it into purpose. The pounding of your heart becomes readiness. The tension in your body becomes energy waiting for direction. Fear turns into action when you step forward instead of freezing. Epictetus knew this truth. Born a slave, beaten and broken, he could have drowned in fear. Yet he taught others that adversity itself was the training ground of the soul. The pain he endured became the strength he passed on. His life proves that fear does not have to be a prison, it can be a teacher. Modern psychology echoes this Stoic insight. Researchers show that stress, when reframed, can boost performance. Athletes call it nervous energy, using it to sharpen focus. Leaders reframe anxiety before speeches as excitement. The fire is the same, but the meaning changes everything. What once burned becomes light. Here's a practice. The next time anxiety strikes, ask yourself, how can I use this energy right now? Instead of resisting the heartbeat, channel it into movement. Instead of fearing the rush of adrenaline, use it to fuel your presence. This question flips the script. Fear becomes fuel, not foe. Picture yourself standing before a challenge, trembling. Instead of backing away, you lean into the flame. With each step, the fire that once terrified you begins to harden your resolve like iron forged into steel. The very heat you feared becomes the force that strengthens you. Seneca compared life to fire. It consumes everything, but it also illuminates. Anxiety may burn, but in your hands, it can light the path forward. The choice is yours. Will the fire destroy you, or will it transform you? Yet when the fire cools and the flames fade, one truth remains: the freedom of the mind. And that is the final key the Stoics leave us, the ultimate step in releasing anxiety and reclaiming peace. Freedom of the mind. The final frontier is not the world outside, but the world within. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each day, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Anxiety convinces you that you are trapped, but the Stoics knew that freedom does not begin when circumstances change, it begins when the mind is unchained. Anxiety is not a sentence, it is a signal. It is your mind's way of telling you something feels uncertain, but it is not a prophecy of doom. When you pause, step back, and shift perspective, you reclaim the ability to choose your response. That choice is the essence of freedom. The Stoics practiced a simple blueprint: pause, gain perspective, take purposeful action. Pause so you don't get carried by the storm. Perspective so you see what's within your control. Purposeful action so you move with clarity instead of fear. This three-step rhythm is as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago. Modern thinkers like Cal Newport and James Clear echo this wisdom in different language. Clear shows us that habits build freedom. Every small act rewires the brain toward strength. Newport shows us that digital minimalism frees the mind from noise, giving room for clarity. Both point back to the same Stoic truth: freedom begins with disciplined thought. Picture the mind as a bird trapped in a cage of anxious thoughts. The bars are not real. They are built from beliefs you've never questioned. Each time you practice Stoic discipline, you bend one of those bars until it breaks. Over time, the cage opens and the bird takes flight. That flight is inner peace. This is the moment to breathe, to release, to imagine your mind unchained. The storm may still rage outside, but inside, you hold stillness. You hold freedom. You hold peace. Anxiety no longer commands you, you command it. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and which part of this journey will you begin applying first? Your words may inspire someone else to take their first step toward freedom. The storm may roar, but your mind can always choose peace. That is the promise of Stoicism. That is the freedom waiting for you.